www.theleaguefantasyfootball.wordpress.com. You can also find us on Instagram and Facebook at The League Podcast and on Twitter at The League Pod. All of our podcasts will be posted on SoundCloud at The League Podcast as well.
Are you ready? Oh, I'm ready. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Are you ready?
Let's do this.
Let's do this thing, man.
The League Podcast.
Yeah.
How's it going, everybody? You got J&D here with The League Podcast.
Yeah, week 10, Dill.
Week 10.
What the heck?
Where has the season gone? I mean, our boys are just getting so big.
Then they grow up and they leave for
I
the
know.
rest of the year.
Gosh, it's like such a tease, you know. Fantasy football needs to be year long. That's why dynasty leagues are the way to go.
Yep.
Because it's just constant all off season. But yeah, we'll be covering week 10 waiver wire pickups for the week, covering quarterback, running back, receiver, tight end, and even defenses.
List them all.
Yeah, let's get into the news though. There's a lot of injuries going on.
Last week was brutal.
Brutal week. A lot of IR for the Redskins. Redskins, I think, were the most unfortunate.
Definitely. That
Two
O-line,
starting offensive
riddled.
linemen, done. You know, obviously, and it showed last week with Adrian Peterson having such a down week. I was so high on him, good matchup, and, you know.
O-line has a lot to do with it.
Yeah, Trent Williams is out as well, so I don't know when he'll be back.
Brandon Sheriff
in town.
And he, I think, is their best offensive lineman, in my opinion, so.
Not even to mention Paul Richardson, IR.
Oh, that team is just getting hurt right now. Yet they still have a winning record. So, you know, Alex Smith is doing something right.
He's a winner, you know.
I think he passed the ball to 13 different targets over the weekend.
And, you know, his main target for the weekend, I can't wait to talk about him. He's going to be in this waiver wire. But anyways, speaking of receivers, AJ Green, seen in a walking boot, obviously. They had a bye week last week. He's supposedly not going to play this week or the next few weeks.
Yeah, he's at least 2 weeks out, so, you know.
Tyler Boyd.
That's going to be up sticking Tyler Boyd, and if you don't have Tyler Boyd, there's going to be a lot of guys we're going to talk about today that could be very viable fill-ins for you, having AJ Green or having a bye week. Because the bye weeks, not to mention, we got 4 bye weeks: Vikings, Texans, Ravens, and Broncos. But continuing on, more receivers still. My boy, Geronimo Allison, out. Looks like he's going to have surgery now, which, talk about boosting up potential. Another guy I want to talk about in that Green Bay offense, MVS is all I'm going to say.
Number one on my list this week.
So I can't wait to talk about him, but man, yeah, these wideouts getting hurt, and Kiki too, still on the shelf.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know, a week ago, before they signed Demaryius Thomas, I was like, oh my gosh, with Will Fuller injury, I'm like, Kiki, I'm just going to sit, and I can't wait to get this guy. But now they signed Demaryius Thomas, and I think that changes quite a bit for Kiki's upside. Like, God, without Demaryius Thomas, Kiki, I think upside was tremendous, but definitely hurts.
Definitely does. And my boy, Chris Carson, you know, all week he was kind of questionable to play. Ended up playing and hurting something else that he wasn't even injured with before, which has been his story, and it's unfortunate because he's a beast. Like,
unfortunate for him, but fortunate for you. You traded him away last week.
I did, and he put together a great week for, you know, the other player. So I mean, it worked out on both sides. I had Tyler Boyd. He went off
for 1 week.
Yeah, he had a bye week, but anyways. That hurts, but obviously that's another guy that we're talking about today is his replacement, Mike Davis, who's been balling. You know, when Chris Carson doesn't play, he gets the ball.
He sure does.
Once again, opportunity.
He brings fantasy points, plain and simple. Another running back who I don't think you did see it, but for those who did see it, Raheem Mostert snapped his arm. I mean, it looked like a cooked noodle. When I saw it was brutal. I almost threw up. It was bad. So
yeah, I looked away.
I hope he has a healthy recovery.
I know.
Poor guy. Yeah. He was killing it. Like you were raving about mini David Johnson over here. In this game too, he looked amazing. He looked really good. Was running hard, and it was similar to how you hurt your arm back in high school when you were going down and you used your arm to like brace your fall, and his just forearm right here.
Thank God mine didn't snap. It was just a sprain. It felt like it snapped. I felt like I couldn't feel it. I thought it was gone. I thought it was off the limb.
Can you imagine how this guy felt? Oh my God! And he too. Like when people break their arms and stuff, I've broken bones, but it's been a long time since I've broken anything. Knock on wood, but. he was just walking with his arm, like, holding it, like, no facial expression. I'd be
Nothing.
like, oh my, I'd be like, like,
I know.
screaming.
The adrenaline's got to be rushing.
Totally.
Though, and,
But with that being said, you got a Breida ahead of him who's been injury prone every week, not thinking he's going to play every week, but ends up playing. Anything happens to Breida, we might just be talking about Alfred Morris as the number one, which is crazy to think about when he was at the bottom of the barrel not even a week ago.
Yeah,
so.
he's a volume runner, so obviously
That'll be interesting to monitor.
Yeah.
But with all these injuries, we have someone that might be returning. Sony Michel.
Yeah.
On the Patriots. He was out the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So with that injury, a lot of people were relying on him heavily. He was just a monster recently, you know, over 20 touches and
over 100 yards, multiple games.
And, obviously without him, they're not missing much with James White. He's just a monster and can prove to be the same thing. But with Sonny Michel back, that helps a lot of people line up. So, you'll be happy to deploy him again. Hopefully, we'll be able to monitor that, but he should get a good week of practice in. And I think that basically rounds about all of our updates and injuries and whatnot for each of those teams and what happened over the weekend. So, Dill, why don't we start first off with these quarterbacks? Let's jump right into things here because we got a lot of players and a lot to talk about. Who's your number one quarterback that you think you'd pick up in a bye week bend or something, injury to a quarterback, whatever it may be? Who you got? Who you rocking this week?
I'm going with Andy Dalton. Obviously, Andy Dalton is more of
the Red Rifle.
The Red Rifle. He's owned in 63% of Yahoo leagues, so he may not be out there, in some of these leagues. In a few of my leagues, he is out there, though. So he's going against New Orleans, who they give up the most points to quarterbacks this year. So I can definitely see him. When Andy Dalton plays in good matchups, he does well. He always struggles in those tough matchups. So with Andy Dalton, I think you can expect 20-plus points from him this week. And, once again, we talked about A.J. Green being out, which kind of hurts him, but I definitely think that this New Orleans defense is beatable and that, Andy Dalton's going to utilize, Tyler Boyd, and then, a couple other guys that I know I want to talk about later in this, and hopefully you got a
John Ross?
boy, John Ross.
I've talked about him so much this year, but obviously with an upstick, so you please take the floor. I don't think I need to preach anymore on how much I love John Ross, and without an A.J. Green, upside to
and he's practicing this week. He's obviously been hurt, so if he plays this week, then he's definitely, especially like DFS, man, he could be so cheap and give you 20, 25 points on a couple touchdowns.
Love it. Definitely.
Anyways, Andy Dalton's my number one quarterback this week. If he's out there, definitely grab him.
Love it. I'm gonna go with a guy that is only owned in 3% of leagues. And before I get into this, I am going to make every one of my last guys that I talk about in each given position my favorite guy. All right, so I'm going to start with guys that I kind of like and maybe you should grab, but my last guy is definitely always going to be the most favorite guy in my opinion. So I'm going to start with Nick Mullins, who's a very, very long shot. I want to shout out Ryan Medici. This man went out on a limb last week and picked up Nick Mullins, said F it, and put him into his fantasy lineup. Yo, I gotta give it to you, Ryan. That was a great move.
Points, I mean,
even with the Matt Ryan too, you put him on the bench for this guy. I just wanted to give you a quick shout out, but I do like
Matt Ryan scored more points, so
but just the risk you took, I gotta credit that. That was big time.
Sure.
That was big time.
Medici's a good player. I mean, he's in our chump leagues. He's in our, not really caring leagues, and he's taking them really seriously. And he's actually been talking smack on Jake and myself to Christian and Julian. So
wow,
yeah. So he told him that he's smashing us. I don't know why he's asking us for.
That's so funny. And here I was giving you a shout out, Ryan. Anywho, Nick Mullins only owned in 3% of leagues. He though has a decent matchup this week against the New York Giants, and it's another primetime game. It's Monday Night Football. He just came off a primetime game. I think he's going to get the start, and that's if he does get the start with Beathard possibly coming back. So if he does, I like him. He threw for 262 yards and had 3 touchdowns on his NFL debut. So this is someone I'm really interested in. So if he's out there and you are in a tough position, I'd grab him. I'd play him. But the guy I got next is someone who I like even more.
Yeah, especially in those 2 quarterback leagues. with these bye weeks, they've been killing me. And I wish I would have grabbed him instead of Brock Osweiler last week. So, once again, Nick Mullins definitely could give you 22 points or he can give you 10, So, love it. Love it, man. I'm going to go with someone that's been so up and down this year, and he's been on this probably 2, 3, 4 times now, but that's Baker Mayfield. Obviously, he has great matchups, and he hasn't done a lot with them, but, he's getting you around 17, 18
Sure.
points, and, on a bye week, you can't ask for anything more. Like, I almost started Joe Flacco last week, and he got, 8 points or something like that. So, obviously, it's tough to go off strictly matchups. We've seen Baker Mayfield has big play potential. He could throw the ball down the field. He's playing Atlanta, who's the third worst defense in the NFL, points to quarterback. So I can confidently start Baker Mayfield, especially with them getting their running backs heavily involved. Duke Johnson, huge week last week. Obviously, they're going to be going towards that direction a lot more than Nick Chubb, over 20 carries for almost 100 yards. So
with their new offensive coordinator being the running backs coach, I think that just speaks volume to how their game plan is going to be moving forward. And I'm so excited because I just love all the screens they're going to be doing, all the little dump off passes, and then, like you said, being able to control the game with Nick Chubb carrying the ball over 20 times. I love Bake, and I have him on multiple of my teams, and I played him already in a lot of bye weeks that I had. Perfect bye week fill, and I think with a Baker Mayfield with a great matchup, like you said.
Absolutely. He's owned in 38% of leagues, so he's out there in majority of leagues. So, once again, if you need someone, I would definitely roll with Bake this week. I believe in him. I think he gets you 20-plus points this week.
Nice.
Who you rolling with your next guy?
I'm rocking my guy, and it's crazy to say that he's less owned than Baker Mayfield in leagues. This guy's only 27% owned, and I understand why. He hasn't been great up to this point. But last night, I think this man just showed his true gameplay ability, and that's Mr. Marcus Mariota. I'm in love with him, and I have been. And last night, it was like I was a baby falling in love all over again. It was great to see him put up 21 of 29 passes for 240 yards and 2 touchdowns in the air. Not only that, he rushed for 32 yards and a 3rd touchdown on the ground. I mean, that's vintage Marcus Mariota that they drafted. The Tennessee Titans, that's how their gameplay should be. And I gotta touch base on that touchdown pass. I don't know if you watched that. RPO, fake it to Dion Lewis. He had it so far in Dion Lewis's chest, pulled it out, and then shovel past it for a touchdown. Did you see that play?
I didn't.
Oh my God, their game calling last night was wonderful.
Matt
and
LaFleur.
I think they're gonna just continue that moving forward. They I think he's a great bye week fill-in, and Marcus Mariota is playing that midseason football and form. They're trying to get to that playoff. They're trying to get to the playoffs, and I think they're going to keep this ball rolling. I'm really high on Marcus Mariota, and he's an easy bye week fill-in in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, with Marcus Mariota, he's going to give you those huge games, and then he's going to screw you some games.
Well, and that's the thing with me. I feel like every time I pick him up and play him, he does that. So I'm recommending you guys pick him up and play him because I'm not going to this week as much as I really do like him. I don't need to grab him.
His legs are really what makes him that extra value to him.
Yeah, and that's what won them the game. He had multiple 3rd down conversions. He got that 1st down on, just like a Baker Mayfield does, but I just am in shock Marcus Mariota's less owned, and it's just due to stats and gameplay this year, but I love Mariota. I really do. I think he's a baller.
I agree, man. My next quarterback, my last quarterback, who, once again is owned in a decent amount of leagues, but he's still available, which is crazy to me, and that's Mr. Ryan Fitzmagic. Started him last week. He balled out for me.
Garbage time.
Oh, stop. That was not garbage time. That was him making a comeback, and he almost did once again.
No.
Their defense is so bad that they're just going to have to throw it. They're going to have to throw the ball. And, I mean, he can throw the ball, and he's got tons of weapons. So he's owned in 66% of leagues. So there's a third of leagues out there that don't have him rostered. So, once again, if he's not, you got to pick him up. He's got some great matchups coming up. And, I mean, I think he's once again, a great bye week fill-in this week. He's going to get you 20-plus points, I think, on a weekly basis. He's quarterback number 14 after missing 4 weeks, So, to me, that's crazy. If you put together what he has played, he's a top 3 quarterback in the league, which is crazy, obviously. But, Fitzmagic, he's back, and he's not going anywhere.
He scares me. That team scares me.
I know, me too. But I love it because it's just he came out looking interception first throw. I'm like, well, this is gonna be a long day. And then
Yep.
boom, touchdown. So I don't know. I like Ryan Fitzmagic, and I'm gonna roll with his magic for the rest of the time. I might even start him over Carson Wentz a couple times the remaining
Look at
season,
that
depending on
matchup
matchups.
based.
Yeah,
Huh?
I'm out here to win ships, and I've actually finally jumped in front of Jay, which is
He jumped in front of me on the standings. Yet I clean swept his ass on the games played this year. So, but it's it's already almost the end of the year. It's a final push. We got to start. I've won many games up to this point, but it's all about that last.
yeah. It don't mean
six-
shit unless you make the
six-game
playoffs,
run.
And
So,
those last 2 games are.
I
That's
got
really
pushed
it.
from 2nd to 4th, and by 1 loss this week. So that's how we'll do it. And then if you lose another one, you get pushed down again. So you just got to keep
I know it's
rolling
close.
with the punches. So I'm gonna pull it out though. I had Odell on a bye week last week, playing the 7-1 Bows team, who is just hard to beat this
You know
year.
who beat him, right? That's right, Big D.
Dylan's only one of the season. No, I'm just kidding. But anyways, let's jump to the running backs here.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna let you preach on your boy MD Mike Davis a little bit. But before that, I want to jump to a guy on the Philadelphia Eagles, Josh Adams. We know all the hype about Corey Clement and Wendell Smallwood. We know too that Darren Sproles could be coming back sometime soon, which is scary as well. I just want to talk about Josh Adams' performance last week. He had 9 rushes for 61 yards, and he also caught a pass. He outperformed all the running backs in that offense in rushes and yards. So, with that being said, he is going to be a very injury-prone, as in like the other guys in the offense. If they go down, he's going to have a huge upside. He's coming off his best performance of the year. And watching him play, he is explosive. He is really explosive. So it'll be something to monitor. Anyone else goes down, I really think you should pick up Josh Adams. I like what he brings. He's only owned in 7% of leagues, so almost, 100% he's out there in your league. So
Yeah, and he in college averaged 6 yards a carry. I mean, the guy's a beast.
looks like it. When you see him play, he runs so hard and he's quick, and I just like it the way he plays, and I'm really interested in him. So, look out for him.
Yeah, and real quick on that backfield, Wendell Smallwood was dropped in a lot of leagues. He's only owned 30-something%. So he still is the lead back in that offense, and they want to get him the ball, and he's catching and running the ball after the catch pretty well. So I think Wendell Smallwood is definitely someone right now that you can use, and Josh Adams definitely long term.
Even with Josh Adams out touching Wendell Smallwood in this game?
He didn't out touch him.
I'm sorry.
10 to 10.
Outperformed.
Yeah,
And 50-50.
definitely.
That's pretty.
But snap percentages were
True.
Wendell Smallwood had a lot more, but they obviously, when Josh Adams is in the game, he's going to get the ball. Trust me, I got Josh Adams on here too, and I love Josh Adams. I picked him up last week, was hoping to hold on to him, but I just wasn't able to. I had to drop him. But
and definitely crowded backfield, so it's tough to say.
it is, and we won't know. We've only seen potential, just like Aaron Jones. We think every week he's going to get 20 carries because he looks like he deserves it, and then gives you 10, 12. But anyways, Mike Davis. We talked about Chris Carson being hurt. Last week he took the role of 15 touches or 15 rushes for 62 yards, and I think the biggest positive about Mike Davis is he can catch the ball. And he had 7 catches for 45 yards in this game. In a PPR league, you're getting 15 carries and 7 catches. You're happy. You're a happy camper, and they obviously want to run the ball in that offense. And that was him taking the ball after Chris Carson went down. So I think next game, if Chris Carson is not playing, then it's going to be just like when he had the lead role. And he had 21 carries for 101 yards and 2 touchdowns on 4 receptions for 23 yards. So when he's given that lead role, he's obviously shown that he can capitalize on it. So if Mike Davis is available in your league, which, he got dropped in a lot of leagues before this because of Chris Carson taking back over. He's only owned in 25% of leagues. So go get him. I mean, he should be the number 1 priority this week for anyone and everyone, in my opinion. Mike Davis. Remember the name. If Chris Carson doesn't come back, this guy could potentially be an RB1 for the rest of the year. So, in my opinion.
I mean, Chris Carson, I think, will be out this week, and he's a good substitute for this week. And then moving forward, when Chris Carson comes back, it's going to be all based on his injury.
It is, absolutely.
So, but definitely take advantage of that. The next guy I'm talking about is someone that is really just another injury-based offense that you're going to have to look out for. But we mentioned him due to these injuries. Alfred Morris. He's owned in 21% of leagues. I don't know. This year, he has 4 games where he's touched the ball 16 times or more. They know they can get him the ball. They know they can rely on him if they absolutely need to. Breida is so injury prone. That's the only guy in front of Morris now. Mostert's done for a year. With Breida being so injury prone, Morris can be starter multiple games and be looking at 20-plus touch games where they're really relying on him. So I'm very intrigued by him. I'm going to continue to watch what goes on. I'm going to look at that offense one more time this week, see how Breida plays. And as soon as Breida goes down, this Alfred Morris is going to be the hottest waiver wire of that week. So why not get him now? Get him before that happens. And you could be looking at a RB, 2 to 3 every single week.
Definitely, and I mean, even with Breida in there, they know he can't handle a whole load. So I think Morris will at least get 10 carries a game, you know, in the goal line too. So I mean, he's potentially gonna,
And that's where he can really thrive is in that red zone. If Breida's getting him down the field, he could still get those red zone touches. So someone I'm definitely interested in. But I'm excited to talk about my last guy coming up. But Dill, take the floor. Who you got?
So a guy that I've held on to for a couple weeks. He's coming off the IR. First week back, Elijah McGuire. Owned in 14% of leagues. Obviously, Crowell is the lead guy in that backfield. He's the second guy, but
he had a decent day.
He did. 7 carries, 30 yards, 3 receptions for 37 yards on 5 targets. I wouldn't say that's a bad day. I would say that's a pretty decent day for number 2. But once again, Isaiah Crowell is proven to be injury prone. So if for some reason or any given moment Crowell goes down, McGuire automatically becomes, RB2, at least an RB3, and he's going to get volume, and he's a big play guy. So if he gets, 15 touches a game, I think this guy could definitely produce for you on your fantasy team and be that weekly flex or even hop in on that RB2 or whatever talk. But, Elijah McGuire, he's out there in a lot of leagues. I highly recommend getting him if you need a running back, and especially if you're Isaiah Crowell owner, definitely this is a time I feel like that you need to kind of grab your handcuffs just in case anything happens, especially for those injury prone players. But anyways, Elijah McGuire, super excited about him. I'm holding him on my team probably for the rest of the year unless obviously he doesn't do anything for me, but right now he's hot. We're gonna roll with a hot hand.
Yeah, definitely gonna be a hot waiver wire commodity without a doubt. I'm going to jump into my last running back here, and this guy is my absolute favorite, especially in PPR leagues, which you should be playing. That's Theo Riddick. Coming off an injury, he returned to the field. He caught 7 passes for 8 targets and 36 yards. 36 yards, yes. Golden Tate just gets traded. I think this opens up Theo Riddick's potential and usage in these, getting passes underneath the coverage all day.
Definitely.
He already had his bye week. He's probably on the waiver wire. He's only 9% owned in Yahoo leagues right now. Theo Riddick, a PPR monster, is only 9% owned. I think he's a very viable bye week fill-in option. From here moving forward, he definitely has a tough matchup against Chicago. And the next 4 weeks are pretty tough. He faces Carolina, Chicago again, Chicago 2 in the next 3 weeks, but then his playoff schedule gets very juicy. You got an LA Rams who's definitely giving up points, and then you got an Arizona Cardinals and a Buffalo Bills who definitely are good, but at the same time give up a lot of air yards to these running backs. So I think this is an easy stash on your bench that you could possibly play every single week because he just caught 7 passes. I think he could be looking at 8 to 10 targets on a weekly basis.
I love that. I love PPR leagues for this reason exactly, for these type of running backs.
So Theo Riddick all day. I'm going to get him this week without a doubt. I'm not a Lion fan, and I usually don't like rocking Lions. And that offensive line is not that great, but it just gives Matt Stafford the reason to dump it off to Theo that much more. So I'm all in on Theo. I really like him this week and moving forward.
Awesome. Well, my last guy, this is a guy who was pretty hot for a while, but that was because Marlon Mack was out. Neon Himes got dropped in a lot of leagues, man. He's only
we talked about him a lot.
6% right now, which is crazy to me.
Yeah,
and before their bye week, he had 11 carries for 78 yards. So this guy he's obviously getting some touches, 10 plus touches a game, even with Marlon Mack. Marlon Mack is back on the injury report and might not even play this week. So if that's the case, Neon Himes is gonna ball out. When Mac's out, this guy's getting the ball. He's getting the ball a lot. So I definitely have confidence in, especially this week against the Jaguars, who I think the Jags will put up a good fight. They're gonna need to throw the ball. So Neon Himes, can't believe he's, like I said, I can't believe he's out here. But if you need a running back and you need to start someone this week, definitely recommend getting Neon Himes, unless Marlon Mack plays.
Yep.
But that's it for my running backs. Let's move on to these receivers. I think there's a pretty solid amount of receivers out. Let's hear what you got first, Jay.
Well, we talked about MVS. That's who
man.
I wanted to start this off with. Marquez Valdes-Scantling, my pack, go. And I think we all know with this Geronimo Allison verified injury, he's now out. This just opens the door for a Marquez Valdes-Scantling who's just been pounding at the door this whole year. And he's been performing. He really has. He's coming off, not a huge target game, but 3 catches, but he put up over 100 yards. And the great catching ability. I mean, he pulled down some passes against the Patriots.
Amazing.
I mean, as bad as that game turned out to be, I was like, who was that? Like, when he caught multiple passes over defenders that I was in awe of. And
just strong hands, man. Just grabbing the ball and holding it. It was beautiful.
Totally ripping it away from defenders, and that's, you can't teach that.
I love when I saw this young buck.
He's a beast, and,
I started him in the league, my dynasty league.
He's startable, I think, from this point on. I think he's built the wide receiver 2 role in that offense, and every week you just see the chemistry between him and A-Rod and the trust between him and A-Rod just building more and more. This week they're facing a Miami team who, decent defense, don't get me wrong, but I think A-Rod and these receivers are just going to be tearing them apart this weekend.
Yeah, man,
so,
I agree.
Marquez Valdes-Scantling, I think, is the #1 waiver wire commodity this week in that wide receiver department, if not all departments.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's him and Mike Davis up there, neck and neck, depending on what you need. But a guy who I really like, I watched a lot of this game and was really impressed, Mr. Adam Humphries. This guy is 2% owned in fantasy leagues right now. Since the bye week, he's averaging 7+ targets a game. In the last 2 games, 9 targets a game. In the last 2 weeks, 15 catches on 18 targets for 158 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Wow.
They obviously want to get him involved in this offense. Fitzpatrick obviously has trust for him. These last 2 games that Fitzpatrick's been in there, he's thrived. So I think that from this point forward, with Fitzpatrick at quarterback, Adam Humphries is his, seems like his go-to guy. Likes those short, quick passes with that slot, it looks like.
But is he? I mean, I feel like before it was Godwin. Godwin was his guy. How has Humphries played up to this point? Like, I feel like, and not because
he's had a couple big games when, I shouldn't say big games, but decent games in the beginning of the year. And then these last couple games, like I said, when Fitzpatrick came in, it's been a whole different ball game. And since that bye week, I mean, he's definitely balled out compared to what he's done all year,
Yeah.
So,
well, all first 4 games he played with Fitzpatrick, right?
But he wasn't very much involved at all. Like,
horrible stats, but like you said, after the bye week,
I didn't even see him.
Definitely involved after that bye week.
Now after that bye week, they want him to get involved, and it showed last week and the last 2 weeks, I should say, that he is hungry, man. Like, he fights. He's like a Cole Beasley, but I think he's better.
I was just gonna say, I mean, it's not because they look alike, but it reminds me of a Cole Beasley because of the fact that he has these big explosive games, though, but then goes super quiet and doesn't really do much. But like I said,
since that bye week, he's averaged 7+ targets, and I mean, he's getting the catches too. So, and Fitzpatrick is playing well. I think it's all based on matchups too. I think it's a
I don't know if you already
matchup.
mentioned, but 99% of their games they're going to be playing from behind. They're just going to be airing it out.
So I like what I saw, and I just like
definitely
not only obviously he had a big stat line, but even if he didn't have that big of a stat line, the way he's playing, he's fighting for extra yards. He's doing everything in his might to do well, and they're handing it off to him, like shoveling it to him, pitching it to him, reversing it to him. So like they want him to be involved, obviously, and I think that from this point forward, he should have a decent role in that offense. That's like I said, gonna throw the ball a ton. So Adam Humphries is one of my top receivers to pick up this week.
Nice. I got a young buck that you can target that he's getting targets. His name's Anthony Miller, coming out of Chicago. I do think Allen Robinson has a good chance to play this week, so this is solely based on the simple fact, if Allen Robinson doesn't play, I really like Anthony Miller this week. He's coming off a week where Allen Robinson didn't play. He had 5 receptions for 49 yards on 6 targets. 6 targets, I'll take that every week. So that was against the Bills. And, this week they do play a Detroit Lions team who is a much better team defensively.
But they've been getting
They have
destroyed from the slot.
Getting torched in the slot, which Anthony Miller will be playing. So I do like this, like I said, if Allen Robinson is out. And long-term wise, this guy's a young guy who has big playability. So, we were talking about him coming into this year. Big time.
in the combine. Loved him.
So this is someone you can definitely look out for. And a high-powered offense who's good on the ground and good throwing the ball. Mitchell Trubisky isn't great. He definitely has still got his work cut out for him.
His legs, though,
but
his
legs give him opportunities to make passes down the field. And Anthony Miller gets open. That's one of the best things he does with a great catching ability as well. So I'm really high on Anthony Miller. Like I said, though, so many people in that offense that it's hard to see who's going to really eat, especially with Allen Robinson in. A-Rob's out once again. I definitely like deploying Anthony Miller.
Yeah, awesome, man. I actually have him on my list as well, so I agree. I think that you can definitely roll with an Anthony Miller, especially, once again, if Allen Robinson is hurt. But even so, with him being in there, it might even help him out a little bit, getting less attention.
Yeah, well, talking about these injuries, someone just headed to IR, Mr. Paul Richardson. This opens the door for someone that I know you're pretty high on.
Yeah, man.
And liked watching last weekend.
Obviously, Maurice Harris, I think his name is, 1% owned. Obviously, he's been on the field a lot this year, but he has not been getting targeted. He hasn't been producing at all. Like the last 5 games, I think the most catches and targets he's had is 3 and 3. So nothing special. But he balled out this game. He blew up, and I don't know if it was because they had to go to him, because obviously one of my tight ends that I want to talk about today is obviously on the Redskins as well. But Maurice Harris, 10 catches on 12 targets for 124 yards.
Wow.
Amazing game.
That's crazy.
Amazing game. And Paul Richardson now going to the IR. Crowder has been hurt for the last, seems like forever, 2 seasons. He's supposed to be the breakout. Maurice Harris is playing from the slot right now with Crowder being hurt. So if Crowder doesn't play this week, Tampa Bay has not only been terrible against defending the pass, but especially against slot receivers. Number 1 in the league. So I think that, if Crowder doesn't play this week, Maurice Harris is a must start. And if he does play, I still think that you can deploy him in your flex, because they want their playmakers out there. They need playmakers out there. So even if Crowder's on the field, I think Maurice Harris will be on the field as well, still getting those targets and looks. So from this point forward, I definitely think that he is someone that you can target, and it might be a 1-week wonder. He might have that big week last week, and then this week coming up, he doesn't do anything for you. But you got to play the hot hand, especially late in the season. These guys catch fire, and they keep rolling with it. So this could be that chance.
With injuries, that chance there, he could, like you
Josh
said.
Josh Doctson obviously has not been the guy that they drafted in that first round to be. Obviously, he's more deadlier in the red zone, but Maurice Harris obviously shows that he's a field guy. He spreads out the field, stretches the field, or whatever. And I think he's just going to make big plays from this point forward, especially with the opportunities coming his way. So,
love it, man.
Definitely, if you need a receiver, you have that extra bench spot, take a flyer on someone like this that can win you a championship, potentially.
Wow, look at that. Well, I'm going to go with a guy that I definitely think can help win you a championship. And this is my favorite. Behind Marquez Valdes-Scantling, this is my favorite receiver that is still 26% owned in Yahoo Fantasy Leagues, at least. So his name's someone I know you're high on, Christian Kirk. He is coming off a bye week, which means now no bye weeks to worry about. He's got a beautiful schedule coming up. Kansas City, Oakland, Chargers, Green Bay, Atlanta, Rams. He's got a cake schedule moving forward. He's coming off 2 weeks ago, a huge game where they just slid by the 49ers 18-15 with a go-ahead touchdown by Christian Kirk with 34 seconds left to play. Not to mention, new offensive coordinator in that offense. Josh Rosen threw the ball over 40 times in that game, which just makes any receiver in that offense, to me, just my heart beat out of my chest. So I think with that, I think that their offense now is going to be based on throwing the ball, getting the ball down the field. Lots of David Johnson still involved, but I think Christian Kirk's that clear-cut number 2 receiver in that offense, and they're going to start getting that ball rolling and start clicking. and they're playing Kansas City this week. So talk about, these back and forth. Obviously, Mahomes is going to put up huge points, and I think that they're going to try and match that with the young Josh Rosen and Christian Kirk. So, like I said, only 26% owned.
That's crazy to me.
I know.
I mean, in our leagues, he's
taken up in every one of our leagues, of course,
that
because
sucks, man. I didn't even think about him. I love Christian Kirk. Obviously, he was one of my top receivers coming out of college this year. So, man, if he was available in our league, I'd be jumping.
I know. I'm thinking, and this
him.
is also a guy that you should potentially be trading for because
100%.
he's not putting up major stats right now, but he's going to get the usage and the volume and make these big plays. So I'm all for Christian Kirk, and I'm excited to watch him moving forward and really watch that Arizona Cardinals offense with the new offensive coordinator in that offense, Byron Leftwich. So that'll be interesting to watch, and like I said, go after Christian Kirk big time.
Awesome, man. Last guy for me that's not even on a team, but working out for the Saints.
Damn it! You took my last question of the day.
Damn.
I was gonna leave that as the last question. Is he worth a stash? Might as well do it now. Is Dez Bryant worth a stash?
Dez Bryant is for sure worth a stash.
Wow.
If he goes to the Saints, I mean, obviously, Dez has been around the league for a long time. I think he can jump right in and play, just like Demaryius Thomas did with the Houston Texans. I don't think it's going to be much time that he needs to do this. And, he's playing with one of the best, Drew Brees. One of the best who puts it on a dime. And they obviously have Michael Thomas, who's their guy. But they need help in that red zone. They're targeting Michael Thomas a ton. They're all eyes on him.
Mm-hmm.
Dez loves those one-on-one fade routes to the end zone. I could just see him getting those. He's going to be that Jimmy Graham, that had, 15 touchdowns with Drew Brees that one year. I just think that if Dez Bryant signs with them, I think that he is going to be a championship winner for you. I think he's going to be that guy that catches 2-3 touchdowns in that playoffs for you at the end of the year when Drew Brees is fighting for home field advantage.
We know he has that ability, without a doubt, and especially with the Drew Brees. Get the heck out of here all day. I'll take that all day. So I think both of us think that is an absolute stash you should be making with Dez Bryant.
Because tomorrow what's going to happen is we're going to wake up waiver wire Wednesday, and Dez Bryant is going to be announced to be signing with the Saints, and everyone who didn't put in a waiver for him are going to be so pissed off. But, he could also, end up getting signed and not do jack diddly squat.
Or he could not even get signed, and then we're still looking at a guy who has no team. But I do love the potential with him on the Saints. And they're also working out guys like Brandon Marshall, so they're definitely looking for that big type body guy to get in that red zone. So hopefully it is Dez, and hopefully you end up with him, and hopefully it all works out, and he's your wide receiver number 1 or 2 by the end of the year. So with the receivers, let's get into the tight ends. I got a tight end sticking with the Saints. I got Ben Watson as my a high guy that I would fill in as a bye week fill in, or someone that you could potentially start from here on out, because if they don't sign anyone, this is their big body red zone target, Ben Watson, and he proved that this weekend. He scored a touchdown in the red zone. Not only that, he caught 3 catches on 4 targets for 62 yards. I'll take that at my tight end spot weekly. So.
Definitely.
Obviously, he's been inconsistent to this point, but I do think he keeps this ball rolling against the weak Cincinnati Bengals defense, and they have favorable matchups moving forward as well. So I'm really liking Ben Watson as a person that I would possibly start him over my Jordan Reed, because Jordan Reed just hasn't been playing up to his potential, and Ben Watson is getting that target share and that usage. So he'd be interesting to put in on your team and as a matchup-based play, possibly play over some tight ends that are big names in this league. So.
Yeah, speaking of Jordan Reed, I have Vernon Davis on this list. He's 4% owned in leagues, and obviously this is a shot in the dark. He obviously has these weeks where he does well, like last week, 5 catches on 7 targets for 62 yards. But with all these injuries happening in this Redskins offense, Vernon Davis is a great pass catcher. So I think they will utilize him as a pass catcher moving forward. So I definitely think that him and Jordan Reed both can be valuable. We've seen it previous years when they were both healthy. So once again, if you really need someone to start this week and there's nobody to pick up on your waiver wire, Vernon Davis is definitely someone that you could hope for, 10 to 15 points possibly on, a touchdown or 2. But anyways, he's playing Tampa Bay as well. 2nd most points to tight ends this year, so that even makes him more attractive in my opinion, that they know they're going to need to attack that type of position coming out in the getting their butts kicked by the Falcons. So they need to come out hot. They need to win this week. I think that they definitely deploy Vernon Davis and pulling him a decent amount. So,
Nice.
yeah, man.
Being a Jordan Reed owner, it's hard to hear that, but I definitely see it too. Watching them play, Vernon Davis is a solid tight end, and they use him in the right way. Guy I'm going with is a big name, but only owned in 40% of leagues. That's Jack Doyle. I remember last year he helped me win a fantasy championship when I got rid of Zach Ertz. So, and Vernon Davis as well. It was a mixture of both those guys. But Jack Doyle's a solid tight end in this league, playing with a top quarterback. I love Andrew Luck, and he obviously to this point has shown that
top 5 quarterback.
He's a top 5 quarterback and can play like one and is putting up passing yards and points and all that. Jack Doyle caught 6 to 7 targets for 70 yards and a TD in his first game since week 2. I mean, that just goes to show the usage, how much Andrew Luck loves him and relies on him. And like I said, he's only owned in 40% of leagues. That's crazy to think about when, he could be a solid tight end 1 for you the rest of the year. Yes, he does have an Eric Ebron sharing usage with him. I think Jack Doyle has the advantage over Ebron weekly. Ebron, though, could still be a starter for you because they've both shown to be able to put up points because Andrew Luck loves being a safe quarterback and using his tight ends, getting it to his big boys, and he even played that way when he played for Stanford. He's just that type of quarterback. So, love what I see out of Jack Doyle. I've always loved Jack Doyle, and I'm excited for his longevity moving forward and what he's going to be able to bring to the table in that Colts offense.
Yeah, Jack Doyle was coming into the season as the number 1 guy that was supposed to, be a top 5 tight end. So go get him.
They are playing Jacksonville. We know Jacksonville's linebackers are solid. This could be a tough matchup, but I do like the stash with Jack Doyle, especially if you can just go get him and he's on the waiver wire. Grab him because matchup based moving forward, even against Jacksonville, he could still produce.
Definitely. My guy, who I've been raving about for the last few weeks, Mr. Chris Herndon, New York Jets. Only 14% owned. You guys need to listen to Big D over here and go pick up Chris Herndon. Last week was the leading receiver on the Jets, catching 4 passes on 4 targets for 62 yards. The last 4 games, he's averaged 12 fantasy points a game. 12 points from your tight end, I mean, you can't get better than that, especially a streaming guy or a bottom-of-the-barrel guy. He's not a bottom of the barrel the last few weeks. He's a top 10 tight end the last few weeks. So if you haven't gotten him, go get him. He's getting more and more involved every single week. And obviously he's coming into the league with the Sam Darnold. So they've built that chemistry throughout training camp till now. Go get Chris Herndon. He's gonna definitely help you out on these bye week fill-ins with like a Kyle Rudolph, who Chris Herndon has been playing better than Kyle Rudolph in the last few weeks. So you might potentially pick him up and then end up starting him over your Kyle Rudolph as the season goes on.
No doubt.
That's how much confidence I have in this guy. So
looks good, playing good. I kind of want to stick on that game. Let's jump to the defenses. I actually have the Bills as a nice stream this week against the Jets. Yes, the Jets are at home, but we're talking about a Sam Darnold who's thrown 14 interceptions to date. It doesn't matter if he's at home or away. The man is turning the ball over. This Bills defense has not been great the last 3 weeks, but I think this is the game they really get to Sam Darnold and they create turnovers. And this is a low-scoring affair because we know the Bills can't score a touchdown for the life of them, even though they did score their first one finally. But I do like the Bills as a stream against the Jets this week against a turnover-prone Sam Darnold. And an ugly offense, in my opinion, with, though, the usage of Chris Herndon. He gets the ball. So, there's not a problem there, but I do like the Bills as a stream this week against the Jets.
I have the Bills as well. But sticking with that game, the Jets defense is also
low-scoring game.
One of the best streaming defenses this week as well. So I think you can roll with the Jets or the Bills. The Jets are the number 5 fantasy defense on the year, so they obviously have proven that they can score fantasy points on any given week, especially playing the Bills, who give up the most fantasy points to defenses.
Sir. It doesn't matter what quarterback's playing. That's a great defense to play against the Bills, of course.
Absolutely, man.
I've streamed the Jets multiple weeks this year, and I actually have Jamal Adams as one of my defensive players on our.
Is so good.
He's averaging over 5 tackles a game, interception a game. I'll take that all day. So I do love the Jets defense at the same time.
Hopefully they get Tremaine Johnson back this week, which will be a huge upgrade to their passing defense.
They need that.
But still, I just think that you're playing against a Buffalo who potentially could get Josh Allen back. And if Josh Allen comes back, he is shown to rise up a little bit more and not be as prone to make mistakes. But still, Buffalo's offense is not that good. So it's definitely not going to be a huge scoring game.
Yeah, low scoring affair. That means start your defenses that game, no doubt. I'm going to go to a game where I love this team, the Green Bay Packers. I'm going with their defense. As surprising as that sounds, they're not facing Tom Brady this week, so we like it. They're facing Miami, like we talked about. And I don't care if it's whether Brock or Tannehill, I don't think they're going to be able to stay upright against the pressure the Pack's going to bring. They've caused 19 sacks over the last 5 games. They're bringing pressure and they're getting to these quarterbacks. So I think they're going to continue to do that. Yes, they do have some banged up players on defense, but we also do have a lot of young players that are going to step up, and I think we are going to just attack this Miami offense. And like I said, that quarterback, whoever it may be, Tannehill or Brock, might be a Brock-apocalypse. Brock-apocalypse. I don't know how to say that, but I think either one of them are going to be going down. Green Bay is going to be putting up 10+ fantasy points.
Yeah, it's not Brocktober anymore. We obviously
That's
saw
long
that
gone.
last weekend.
Yep.
Bit me in the ass, but it's all right. My last streaming defense of the week is the New England Patriots. Last week wasn't the best game that they've played, but the last 3 weeks they're averaging 13.3 points a game for defense, which is, I'll take that all week. 10+ points.
Hell
That can win you a game. So, New England Patriots going against the Tennessee Titans. Obviously, the Tennessee Titans looked really good last night against the Cowboys. If they come out firing like that, then obviously it's not going to be as favorable for New England. But I do think that they're good enough of a defense to play this week against Marcus Mariota, who's proven to be very turnover prone some games and also be very
efficient.
Yeah, some games. So
Solid.
It just depends on what type of game he wants to do. New England's schedule, not only this next week, but moving forward, it's actually pretty nice as well. So you can pick them up and play them for the next few weeks too. So New England, I hate the Patriots, but they're playing well.
They're playing well. They always do this time of year. So that leads me to my my last defense, and that's a primetime matchup, Monday Night Football. 49ers. I'm going to say go out and play them. 49ers versus the Giants. They pulled out an 8-sack game and only allowed 3 points in last week's game against the Raiders. I know it was the Raiders, but still, it's the NFL. You only allowed 3 points and you put up 8 sacks. Give me some of that all day. And before that, they held Arizona to only 18 points. So that defense is definitely stepping up. Giants, who they're facing on Monday, have allowed 4 sacks a game. So I think that's going to continue. That offensive line obviously is having trouble keeping Eli upright. 49ers defensive line is looking scary right now. They're looking really good.
They've invested a lot in there.
Drafted right. They invested right. So I definitely think this 49ers is a sneaky play. And obviously it's not a attractive name. Richard Sherman's coming back into form. He's playing well. I mean, definitely like this 49ers defense against the Giants offense, who has struggled up to this point. But that's my last one. That's my last one. So, I think we verified Dez Bryant, a stash. You should stash him. And then one more thing we didn't really touch base on is Amari Cooper's first game on the Dallas Cowboys. Scored within the first 10 minutes of his Dallas Cowboy career. So, good for you, Amari Cooper. But I wanted to ask you, do you think that's a guy that has significant fantasy value moving forward in that Dallas Cowboys offense?
I did until last night. I just think that Dak doesn't really key in on anyone, and he never has had a number one guy. Even with Dez supposed to be that number one guy, he didn't feed Dez as much as he should. So I think that Dak is more of I'm not going to key on one guy. I'm just going to kind of see who's open. I'm going to throw it to the open guy. I don't know. I just don't know. I think that Amari's going to have some big weeks, but I don't think that he's going to be a wide receiver 1 moving forward. I think he's going to be more of a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, depending on matchup, which they have amazing schedule.
That's what I wanted to bring up. Their schedule, I think, is one of the best, if not the best, of the rest of the season. And I don't know, though. He targeted Cooper 8 times yesterday, and he even forced him the ball in multiple situations where he turned it over in the red zone because he forced it to Amari Cooper because he thought he had the better receiver or the guy that was going to go get it over these defenders.
Which happened to Dez a lot, too, where he would try to force it. And then once he did that, he steered clear of him for the rest of the game. So that's what makes me nervous. If he starts making mistakes like that, then he just zeroes them out. Just, you know what, I'm done. Even though he did have 8 targets, wasn't that league or team leading?
Yeah. Caught 5 of the 8 targets for 58 yards and a touchdown. And, you know, on that play where Amari scored, I mean, that was 100% Dak and Amari. Like, he only looked at Amari that play. I think there's some potential there. I really do. Their offense is having Zeke, having now that Amari Cooper who opens up the ability for an Allen Hurns to be able to actually score.
Actually, Allen Hurns had 1 target last night
for a touchdown. But I just mean
Michael
it opens
Gallup
up.
Is a name
oh my
that
gosh,
I
know. We should
for.
really have had him on here because
3 receptions on 6 targets.
Many catches last night. I was like, damn.
60-something yards. So, I mean, obviously, he was the number 2 receiver last night.
But that's my point, is that Amari Cooper now opens the door for the rest of these guys to actually succeed.
But, like, that's what I'm saying is I think that it's going to be more of a team than more of just one player type of thing, you know?
Yeah.
I just don't see
in
Amari.
the red zone, though, Amari's probably the only receiver in the red zone.
Well, Gallup is supposedly the red zone target, too. So.
But I feel like they run such two tight end sets. I feel like there's only one receiver, and that's going to be Amari. So, I don't know. I like Amari. I think with that offense, he's going to start to glue more and more and gel more and more with that offense. But to your point, too, Dak spreads the ball way too much and looks so inaccurate at times and just kind of makes bad decisions. So that offense as a whole scares me. Zeke, you know, obviously.
I wanted to talk about Dak today as a streamer, but it's just.
I don't. After what I saw last night, I'm not in love with Dak by any means. He had a rough game, and you know, but that schedule moving forward is so beautiful. So might be someone we might be talking about for podcasts to come. Anywho, Dill, that was a blast. I hope you guys all wake up with your waiver wire edition on Waiver Wire Wednesday tomorrow.
Can't wait.
And I'll be waking up, you know, standard alarm clock in my head at 2 a.m., checking the wire, making moves, doing what we do. But it's always a blast, Dill.
Yep, matchups coming up next. Have a great weekend, or I should say, we'll talk to you before the weekend.
That's right. Get you guys set, get you guys right.
Starters, sitters,
all that good.
Shooters. www.theleaguefantasyfootball.wordpress.com. You can also find us on Instagram and Facebook at The League Podcast and on Twitter at The League Pod. All of our podcasts will be posted on SoundCloud at The League Podcast as well.
What did I do? What did I do? The League, huh?